This is the beginning of the Redevelopment Commission of Bloomington, Indiana. Today is Monday, June the 17th, 2024. Can I have a roll call, please?
Randy Cassidy, present.
Deborah Myerson here.
John West here.
Deb Hutton here. Staff present, please.
Anna Hansen, present.
Christina Finley, Hand Department.
Larry Allen, Legal Department.
Holly Warren, Economic and Sustainable Development. Jane Cooper Smith, Economic and Sustainable Development.
Any staff online?
Sam Flainer, Monroe County School Corporation.
Thanks. Should we call for any specifically, or?
I think we
Okay. So let's start with reading of the minutes for June 3rd, 2024. If there are any questions or comments from the commissioners, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. I have a first and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. Next, we have examination of the claim registers for June the 21st, 2024 for $1,561,731.15. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? If not, I'll take a first or second. I'll entertain a motion.
Two questions.
Yes.
One, Adam, I take it, since it's marked out, Adam Watts, we have a new person that's verifying the claims?
No, Cheryl just wasn't available.
Just saw that and was curious in regards to it. And then the other question I had in regards to it was the last one on, let me get down to it just to make sure. The, under the hand fund 905 on the housing development fund for Bloomington Cooperative Living for bookkeeping.
Well, what page you on?
It's the last page,
It's page 11.
page 11. Yeah. I'm just curious.
That's the landlord risk mitigation.
I believe that it's the landlord risk mitigation fund. BCL has received some HDF funds in the past for 410 West Kirkwood. And I believe that it was one of our requirements that they have the bookkeeping because there was some details that were lacking.
Now, landlord mitigation fund, that's.
It's essentially a fund that's paid into when a risky tenant is leasing up a unit. So it encourages a landlord to lease to somebody that they may not otherwise lease to. It also puts some money in an account, so if there's damage to the unit, that it can help pay for it.
Okay. So it helps us spread affordable housing. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioners? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of claim register for June 21st, 2024.
A second. I have first and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, we have examination of payroll registers for June the 14th, 2024 for the total of $39,855.61. Any questions or comments from commissioners? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, we have reports from officers. Director's report.
No director's report, but I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Legal report.
Just briefly, I want to note that the RDC met in executive session just immediately prior to this. Executive sessions are for limited purposes, in this case to discuss real property transactions. Those meetings are for redevelopment commissioners only, so they are not open to the public. That meeting started at 4 p.m. and ended probably at 4:55 p.m. just prior to this meeting. The second thing I would like to note is that per request from Economic and Sustainable Development, Resolution 2445 is going to be pulled from tonight's agenda for consideration, so we will start with 2446 as the first resolution. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any questions? Okay. Treasurer's report.
There is no treasurer's report tonight. Unfortunately, Jessica was on the phone. She was having problems hearing And she's running to another meeting, so she said she had to bow out of the meeting. So, but I'm happy to take any questions back to the controller's office that anybody has.
Thanks. Any questions?
Just, the only question I have in regards to that from a controller standpoint, she had provided us with an overall basis of the TIF in 3 positions, and we're going to follow up and give us some additional financial information. I'm assuming that will continue on.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Business development updates?
On behalf of Ms. Daisy Holly Warren, I'm going to give an update.
Hi everyone, Holly Warren, Assistant Director for the Arts for the City of Bloomington.
It goes
Oh,
in the system.
yeah, sure, okay, I'm gonna come up there and stay.
Thanks.
Hey, I'm Holly Warren, Assistant Director for the Arts for the City of Bloomington Economic and Sustainable Development Department. I just wanted to share an update about the Hopewell 1% for the Arts installation update. So at the beginning of this year, we put out a call for artist qualifications. That means we were soliciting artists to tell us, hey, show us what you've got to put together an awesome proposal for a piece of public art in Hopewell Commons, which is the first phase of the Hopewell development. So of all the applicants for that, we got 4 stellar applicants that we invited to do whole proposals for what an art installation could look like in Hopewell. That application period closed on Friday, and I'm happy to report we have 4 pretty awesome proposals to look at. So I just wanted to share some updates on timeline for this. So what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is just sorting the applications, working with each of the 4 artists and artist teams to have interviews between them and the selection committee for the piece. We're also going to do a period of public feedback where we're going to be releasing the designs to the public and just asking, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you want to see more of? What is absolute ick? What is absolute heck yeah, this is awesome? So the public feedback period will run from June 24th through July 5th. And we'll be sending out press releases. We'll make sure you all get that information so we make sure that we get as much feedback about this as possible. We are hoping to select the final project for this by the end of July. That's what we're aiming for. From there, we're going to be working with the artist and with our colleagues in engineering and parks to make sure it's installed well. I don't want to be coming back to you years from now being like, oh my God, you guys, we put it on a stormwater retention tank. We have to start over. We're going to avoid that this time. This is going to be a one and done type of situation. So we'll work on just kind of, fine tuning some points with engineering and parks through the end of summer. And then we're looking towards a fall install. And I just wanted to remind you, this is RDC funded and the overall budget for this project is $100,000. So once we select it, I will come back and just give you the overall proposal. It looks like you had a question.
Commissioner's question? Is the goal to have simply one artist selected, or is there the possibility that the budget might be allocated on, let's say, more than one?
Great question. So for this phase, we will just do one of the 4 installations. We do have a little funds remaining in the Hopewell 1% for the Arts, but we decided to hold on to that just to kind of see what develops in each of the different areas over time to potentially put something else new and cool there. One of the things we were working on when we put out this call for art, and as we were thinking about how we might do 1% for the art installations going forward, is we don't want just like what people call plop art, where you just take one sculpture, it's in one piece of an area, and there's no other art permeating around. So we wanted to say, hey, what if we broke up this money a little to potentially do smaller things around the development?
Ray, you have a question?
As long as we're on time and budget, there's the issue. And then, as you said, since we are 1% overall, as these other areas develop, you're anticipating putting some sort of other.
Correct. We're hoping we have about another $90,000 to work with.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Are the funds for the 1% that are ever used in the context of a broader placemaking effort, in the sense that obviously public art is meant to endow some of that into the public space, and as you suggested, like trying to give it more of a context than just kind of this is the place where the public art is. So I'm just wondering in terms of the scope of the uses of the 1%.
The 1% for the arts ordinance as it stands now is pretty vague and open for interpretation. So basically it's like you use this funding, and Larry, you tell me if I'm wrong here because I don't want to get us in trouble. But my understanding is, we get the funds based on a certain project, but it doesn't all have to be on that site. I think we have a little flexibility over how it is used in that area.
And I was gonna ask exactly what Deborah did, so I'm covered. Good question. And any questions from you?
Nope.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to stay up here because I'm not talking again.
And Deborah Kuntz for a Hopewell update.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I would also add on to, just to piggyback on what Holly said there, as the private development comes through, the opportunity to increase the arts through their part of the 1% will also be a piece of this. So we should know that, this 1% is based on what the city is contributing in terms of infrastructure, but the big piece of this also comes with what we're gonna challenge each of the developers to do through that 1%. So on that note, I have a very quick update on top of that, and that is to confirm for the RDC that we have heard you and that there is a lot of effort behind the scenes going on regarding the public offering for Hopewell South. We had a kickoff meeting with U3 today, and they're getting back engaged again to do a final review to make sure that we know, if there's any market changes, we should know before it gets issued. And we plan to be back at your July 1st meeting in order to ask for approval to move forward with that public offering. At the same time, we're also starting the conversations around Hopewell East and its public offering. So much discussion going on about that. So thanks for encouragement.
Questions, commissioners?
Your time frame on that, you're going to have it put out July?
In July, yep.
For both south and east.
We're for sure July on South. I think we're going to give a little bit of space between them in terms of making sure that developers have the opportunity to do both. Even though we may be attracting different developers, we don't want to put them on top of each other because somebody may not be able to do both.
Okay.
So they'll follow.
And these are for the specific blocks, not individual areas, specific block areas, or combined.
So I'll speak to public offering for South, and the intent is to give the developers opportunities to individually submit on the blocks that are there, and so that opportunity will exist. We haven't talked enough yet about Hopewell East, but I'm sure that there are some parallels that we'll see come through.
Okay, so and the block configurations will still be the 8, 9, and 10 as they were previously?
So for Hopewell South, yes, it's blocks 8, 9, and 10, because recall that has not been platted yet. The difference when we get to Hopewell East is we have actually platted that. So we actually have the opportunity to go and look down if we want in terms of the plat level.
Okay. Thank you. And one comment, Deb, thank you if you had anything to do with fixing the area at First Street and College.
I think we should probably thank engineering for that.
Appreciate it.
Other commissioners? Thanks, Dan, very much. So we finished with that. New business. We'll go straight to the B resolution. Resolution 2446. Access to the 4th Street Garage for a public art installation. Who will speak to that?
Hey everyone, it's me again, Holly Warren, Assistant Director for the Arts, Economic and Sustainable Development. Sometimes we do wholly public art projects where we're pulling budget from different lines of the city's budget. Sometimes we collaborate with other entities in town to do other fun stuff. So we are working with Downtown Bloomington, Inc. on a larger initiative to activate alleys using art. And we settled on this project from an artist named Esteban Garcia Bravo, who actually, his piece is installed in the Trades District Garage. That's his 1% for the arts project. We are potentially selecting a piece by him to put in the alley that is on the south side of the 4th Street Garage. So you see images in your packet, but I'm gonna try to describe it. So basically it's comprised of what he calls prisms. So these are 3 cubes that are open except for the rods that make up each of them. So there are 3 cubes that each have 8 rods. So these 3 cubes are they would be put in the alley and just placed next to each other, and then there would be a little stage, And the idea is the rods light up and make this awesome display. The installation overall is about 12 feet wide and 30 feet long. And the idea is over the course of the next 2 years, this piece would stay in the alley and guests would just be invited to interact with it, to walk through it. This was previously installed over at Columbus, Indiana, as part of Exhibit Columbus 2023. And people used that stage, man. It was a really cool, active site of Bloomington. So DBI, working with me and Esteban and members of Public Works, agreed that this would be an awesome location to try to get some more activity in this alley. And next to a few arts businesses, places that have music concerts, that I think could use some more excitement at night. So what else do I want to tell you about this? So I want to acknowledge, so this piece, even though it's open, it does, like, it fills the alley, right? And you'll see that the way it's going to be installed is some of those rods are going to be screwed into the ground. But what we're doing to make sure it's still accessible is we're building ramps that go over each of those rods. And we worked with engineering to make sure that there are always at least 4 feet of egress as folks are traveling through it. And the other thing I'll say is, although Downtown Bloomington Inc. is funding this, we're going to do a separate contract with Esteban, so the city will be responsible for the maintenance. That means if it's damaged and we need to pay for it to be repaired, that will come out of my arts maintenance budget. We're thinking about having this initially for 2 years, and if we still like it after 2 years, we can consider leaving it there longer. However, if it just gets destroyed, if we just learn this isn't the right place for it, if people are hanging off of it, if we just decide it's unsafe and it doesn't look good and it doesn't serve the ultimate purpose that we wanted it there for, we will just deinstall it before the end of those 2 years. That's what I've got. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners?
This is interesting. I'm not familiar with this type of art at all. So what came to my mind is damage control and liability issues. If somebody gets hurt, who's responsible, and how do you police it so it doesn't get destroyed, because things do.
This would still fall within the city's insurance policy because it is on RDC property, so the 4th Street garage falls into our general liability, so those claims would come to the city. In all likelihood, because we are giving permission to install this art on the property. That's why it is important for Holly to coordinate with engineering to make sure that it's as safe as possible. We took all the steps. Of course, there's defenses within that we would have potentially to raise, but it would fall under our insurance policies in terms of liability.
I have a question, which is about just trying to get a sense of how this site was chosen for this, and even like if there's a current metric of what the current pedestrian traffic is like, and where the destination is, like which way are people going, why are they using this alleyway to get there, and then what adding this public art element seeks to invoke in terms of what the vision is for that space.
Sure. So the reason we chose this specific alley for this specific piece of art is because we needed an alley where cars weren't going to be driving. And we also needed an alley that was wide enough to be able to accommodate the width of this thing because it had been prefabricated for another arts thing. I think I think this is the best location for this piece. And I am really excited, like I said, for the businesses around there. I hope it does draw some attention to them. I hope, too, that it potentially draws some attention to somebody potentially wanting to go into that empty storefront at the 4th Street garage. We've found in the past that when you all have been generous enough to allow us access to that storefront at the 4th Street garage, it really animates it. People get really excited about what could happen in that space. So that's kind of the argument for that piece in that alley. Now, I do believe that going forward, as we're working with DBI, we're definitely going to be saying, of course, we want activity there. And I think especially, too, as we're thinking about, okay, where is the convention center going to expand, right? This will be a great site for that. But we are definitely going to be saying, okay, what about places closer to Kirkwood in the future to think about, if there are like street closures in the future there, how can we get people there, enjoying it and all the businesses on the square while also activating things in those those alleys. But for this piece of art in particular, there just wasn't an alley closer to that main square downtown that could accommodate this piece.
So I appreciate your clarification of that. Just trying to get a sense of, in terms of, again, measuring a before and an after, is there some kind of monitoring of like what the current usage of that alley is and then what it might be increased by in terms of the addition? Just curious of like how to say, you know,
And
this is the impact that this has.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's actually something that I haven't thought about with this, but I think metrics of success are important, and we can definitely build some into this project.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Would there be any way we could work with Public Works in regards to set up a counter, as we do?
Sure. Yeah.
To identify what actually occurs as far as number of traffic occurring here. I mean, it's gonna be an attractive situation, and it leads back through to one of our music venues
Right.
also, so that traffic into there. Just curious if
I
that
think
could be
that's
incorporated with a minimal amount of cost and effort, because I know the Public Works has a lot to do. And that does lead me to one question on the Public Works standpoint. Is there approval necessary in Public Works also for this?
It's not in this case. Typically, this is not a platted alley, so that was one thing. This is a walkway that was amended to the end of the garage, so it is under your ownership right now. Once you've paid off the bonds, the garage goes back to Public Works, and so that at that time they would sign off of it. But this is RDC property at this point, and it's not, since it's not a platted right of way, it falls under your authority.
Just to comment on page 23 in the staff report, Exhibit A, and that's really to Deb Hutton rather than Deb
yeah.
Kutz.
I am so sorry about that. That is my fault.
Just for a bit of accuracy. That's all.
Thank you.
She sent us an updated one that
Yeah.
will go with the
Yeah.
resolution.
I just wanted the commissioners to hear that. No other questions? If not, I know, any comments from the public? In person, online? Hearing none, and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 24-46.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thanks
so
all
much.
very much.
Appreciate it, y'all.
The second resolution we're going to see is number 2447. That's the ratification of determination of no excess assessed value in the allocation areas. Who's going to speak to us on that?
That's me. So one of the requirements of the RDC is to make a determination every year of whether there's going to be excess assessed value and send out notices of such to the neighboring taxing units. That is due June 15th of every year. We had looked at the budget of the RDC and made a determination there's not going to be excess assessed value this year, and I can walk you through why that is just generally. And we went ahead and sent out those letters in anticipation that there wasn't any excess value, but since we had not passed that through the board, we wanted to give you all the opportunity, one, to make sure that you ratify it, that it's officially part of the board. This is also a calendaring issue, so that next year this won't happen, so that you all will see this well ahead of time. Typically, we do these in May or April even, just as soon as we get the numbers back and we kind of understand. Just to walk you through, so there are 3 TIF districts that we're talking about: the consolidated TIF, the North Prow TIF, and then also the Meridian allocation area. The Meridian allocation area, just so you know, this is going to be the first year that sees any valuation at all. 95% of those revenues are pledged back to Meridian to kind of offset the taxing amount and to reinvest it back into the personal property. So no excess value there, because that is a project-based TIF that goes back into Meridian as part of a economic development financing agreement. In terms of the Proud TIF and the consolidated TIF, there's a couple of factors here. So to determine whether there's going to be excess assessed value, you take what the RDC anticipates getting in revenue from the TIF district, and you offset that by the debt obligations and projected expenses. Just in terms of debt obligations, in 2024, the outstanding debt obligations in terms of payments that we anticipate you all having to make is about $6.7 million. Those include the original bonds on the consolidated TIF. Some of those were refinanced in 2017. So there's 2 sets of bonds there. There's 2015 bonds and then 2017 bonds. And then there's also 2019 revenue bonds that were used to construct the 4th Street garage and the Trades District garage. That makes up for about half of that payment, just shy. I think it's about $2.7 million in debt payments at this time under the financing. So that's a large chunk of it. And then we look at the project expenses. So last year, for instance, we pulled in about $15 million of TIF revenue. Of that, we expended $12 million. The remaining $3 million went to outstanding obligations and then coverage for the debt. We don't anticipate that getting any bigger this year. And then once we also assess the potential expenses that we have with projects, even just looking at Hopewell alone, what we've projected in terms of the unfunded parts of the project, if that were to come under TIF, we would well exceed what we bring in the TIF revenue. So those factors combined, just looking at that project, that doesn't include what we're talking about for other redevelopment projects such as Trades District, any other deals that get done in the Trades District, what we're looking for there, if any development comes through there. Also, some other infrastructure developments that happen around the city through engineering, public works that are within the TIF or serving the TIF. Obviously, we have ongoing projects related to the B line. Most of that is funded and is allocated, but hasn't been expended yet. So there's amounts that are held back that could be expended for the TIF as well for those major projects. And then we also have other redevelopment projects that we're eyeing potential for, which is we've been in talks for various affordable housing projects and closing deals, and then closing the deals on Hopewell as well, and start to have those notices of offering, which inevitably will include questions of will there be anything in real estate value, or will we have to do additional infrastructure investment as well on top of what we've even projected. So for all those reasons combined, we determined that we have no excess assessed value, that all of that will be essentially expended for either existing debt obligations or for future projects. This ratification, though, would just go to show, so just so you know, if you do have excess value, the way this works is that we'd have to send notice to the auditor, who then sends notice to the Department of Local Government Finance, who then reviews our determination of excess value, and then they make a determination of what the share among all taxing units would be of that excess value, and then they have to trigger that mechanism down the line. Since we don't have excess value, it's not really going to go for that. All we really have to do is send out the letter notifying them that there is no excess value. The auditor will notify the DLG of F as such, and that's the end of it.
But if there was excess value, they send money back at the end of the year to the TIF.
That's correct. It gets redistributed among the taxing units
So
if the state agrees with us that we will
Right.
have.
So the whole purpose, though, of the TIFs then is to bring in and spend the same amount of money. Bring in X and spend X in any one year. It's to very evenly bring money in and spend money out. Is that?
It doesn't have to be within the 1 year, but over the lifetime of the TIF, yeah. So we have to look at future projections, because essentially we can't enter into any contract without a guarantee that we have that money in the coffers to be able to pay for that contract. And so that's one of the considerations when we talk about those future expenses. So it doesn't have to be within the calendar year exactly, but it does have to be within the lifetime.
Thank you.
And the lifetime of the TIFs are 20 years typically.
Typically it's 20 years, so there is some staggering in terms of the individual. So even within the consolidated TIF, just because of when those bonds were issued, I know this is getting a little bit in the weeds, but there are some different dates there. So it's not, they don't all end on the same date, they get staggered, but yes, generally the rules is, it's 25 for a consolidated TIF, like a commercial TIF, 20 for if you do a residential TIF, which we haven't done yet, but we are considering.
So in that TIF consolidation, where we've got consolidated TIFs that make up a series of other TIFs that have been put together, are those staggered in regards to when they drop off? So when we're looking at the difference between what we're contractually obligated to with our TIF dollars are committed to, do we calculate that into our timeframes?
It does get calculated in the timeframes, particularly when you're issuing the debt. So whenever we're issuing, so for instance, the 2019 revenue bonds to pay for the garages, the coverage that you have to calculate out for every single year of debt service payments incorporates when those roll off. So you have to have coverage until the very last day. So it will adjust for when those
And if we as a community look at adding additional things, then those TIFs can then be re-upped, is that what occurs?
So,
Or does, what's the determinate time frame that we have to look at projects and say this is gonna be in this time frame because that TIF will drop off, but that increment financing dollar will drop and then it'll go back to the other taxing units at that time?
yeah, so once you reach, if I understand your question, if this answer is unclear, please clarify.
Oh, question could be question.
If I understand the question directly, so TIF's really capturing the increment, right? You set the base amount for the undeveloped land, essentially, or when the TIF's created, you're setting your base amount and then you're capturing the increment above that. At the end of that TIF, that all goes back into the taxing rolls. So all of a sudden, what was the base amount that all taxing units collect, now they collect from the full assessed value amount for the tax. For projects, in terms of when you're looking at individual projects, I think one of the areas that we evaluate, of course, is what kind of project is it? Where are we starting at from a real estate value standpoint? If we are starting relatively fresh from a real estate value, so say for instance, you have vacant real estate that is about to get a development, one of the things we might look at is creating a new project-based individual TIF. And that's something Bloomington hasn't really been doing. Up until this point, we really took a more wholesale approach to the consolidated TIF. But you would do that for a few reasons. One, it enables you to now reset the clock 20 years. You reset the base. Now, of course, you reset the real estate value of assessment, but it allows you to capture all of that increased assessed value from whatever is going to be built on that project. And so that's a very fair way of kind of looking at this. In terms of the consolidated TIF, though, we've also, it's been very successful in terms of the infrastructure upgrades and allowing increased development, and the assessed value in the consolidated TIF has grown throughout these years. So in terms of the ability to infuse money into improvements that are serving the TIF and serving the community, it's been a successful TIF. One of the things we are also working on, just a way of showing that potentially, is also we've inquired about showing it in terms of the increased value per square mile within the city. So you can see kind of where TIF dollars have gone on a heat map throughout the consolidated TIF, and you can also see what the impact has been throughout the consolidated TIF, because I think that'll help show kind of the breadth of coverage of what that TIF has done. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
No,
just saying.
Perfect answer, because
Yes,
it tells us where we are.
It's not as simple right now as just extending a TIF area and then extending its life.
But if we saw an area, where the consolidated, where you said, okay, we have undeveloped land that the city wants to redevelop accordingly, you could give that increased value back to the other taxing units and then start over with a different separate TIF.
Correct.
That then would be either a smaller area that we define what the particular redevelopment opportunities are there.
Yeah,
okay,
that's correct. That's one possibility.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Other commissioners' questions? Comments from, or questions from the public, online, in the house? You have
I
another one?
apologize. When we get to the North Kinzer Road and Prow Road, and it created in '96, will that, because there's not a lot that's happened up there, is there? It seems like that one's just kind of a little of an outlier on itself.
It's had fewer projects. Certainly than the consolidated TIF. There's no question about that. We have continued to look for projects out in terms of what's serving that area around there. I think the initial idea there behind the Prow Road TIF was to see a lot of neighborhood investment, particularly for the north, which may still happen. So there's some areas there that we could potentially use that for, but it has certainly seen less. You see that from the assessed value. It's a much smaller TIF just generally than the consolidated TIF. It brings in much less revenue, and there's been fewer projects for that. But it's something we are always looking for.
I could add to that a little bit. There was at one time a hope that there would be a commercial drive, a lot of commercial development up 37, and it was zoned for really to put offices and such in there. It kind of looked like North Meridian, and that never took off. We had one building. I think Cook did a building, or somebody did a building. Actually, it was not Cook, but
all good.
yes, and then that was kind of the extent of it. So
that was the primary function.
It's never took off.
Okay, thank you.
So seeing no more comments, could I entertain a motion, please?
I'll move approval of resolution 24-47.
Second.
Having a first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That's our two resolutions. We're now back down to business, general discussion. I have an announcement. Today is my last meeting as president. My last day to do things will be June the 30th, if signing plats comes up. I'll be moving to a suburb of Chicago to be near the grandsons on July the 15th.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So vice president.
You're there.
Well, I don't know when there'll be a fifth member. It'll have to be from the mayor.
You can't take this with you.
Well, she made it.
Well,
Vice president made it.
Okay.
Well,
Congratulations.
so, it's been a pleasure.
We're gonna miss you.
I'm sad to see you go.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
From the peanut gallery, Doug, we'll have to share updates with you on Hopewell and all the other seeds that you have helped put
That'd be
plant
great.
during
You
your
can log
tenure.
in.
So thank
I have
you.
a feeling she'll be visiting.
I still haven't stepped out of here.
Oh, great.
And Lotus Festival will be here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, good luck.
Good deal.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I say goodbye every day to someone. There's something that's hard.
Oh, we will definitely miss you.
After 40 years, it's hard.
Wow.
Anyway, anyone want to call for adjournment?
We're adjourned.
Yeah.
We're adjourned.
So moved. Aw.
Aw.
Bye, computer.